At this time, it is really my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our provost, Dan Linzer. Dan became provost of Northwestern University on September 1st, 2007. And he joined Northwestern actually in 1984 as an assistant professor and is now professor of molecular biosciences. Provost Linzer has conducted pioneering research on the molecular basis of hormone action, and following 4 years as associate dean, he was appointed dean of the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences in 2002. Prior to coming to Northwestern, Linzer received his Bachelor of Science degree in molecular biophysics and biochemistry from Yale University and a PhD in biochemical sciences from Princeton University. He's completed a National Institutes of Health postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins and has received many, many awards that I could go on and on about. But instead, I'd like to have you hear from Provost Linzer, who is also a wonderful partner to us in Alumni Relations and Development, and as I learned today, also a great father. So, you are. And Provost Linzer, everybody.
Of course, the first question I get at the table is, what's a provost? I think, Payson, you can answer that question as well. Thank you to all of you for being members of this society and joining us today. Your support is greatly appreciated, not just by me, of course, but many of the leaders of the university benefit from your generosity, and a number of them are here today with us. Brad Ham, the Dean of Medill, and Jim Phillips, the Vice President for Athletics and Recreation. I think Jim has been hiding over here all day. Some of you may know that there's a little something going on today that Jim's avoiding. I saw Sarah Pritchard come in, the Dean of Libraries. Penelope Peterson is being pointed out, the Dean of the School of Education and Social Policy. Jay Walsh, the Vice President for Research. At Morty's conversation for this is the one time I've heard this line used, but our president at his recent conversations with the university handed out a recent publication from Science Magazine, the premier magazine that featured Jay, and a story on the growth of research at Northwestern. And Morty held it up and said, "Wow, look at this picture of Jay." And then he looked over at me and said, "Dan looks okay, but Jay's really handsome." So Jay, stand up and take a bow. That was good. Am I missing any deans or vice presidents? Did I see Marilyn McCoy come in? Marilyn McCoy is over there, the vice president for administration and planning. I see an ex-dean, Bernie Dabrowski, the former dean of the Beanan School of Music. Who am I missing over there? I think we got Sarah Pritchard. And is Barb O'Keefe here? No? Okay, so maybe I missed someone. Don't yell at me later if I did. They're all, it's wonderful when alumni decide that Northwestern was such an important part of their lives that they want to set aside some of their estate to benefit the university long term. I must say it's also quite amazing when people that the university paid over the years to work here as faculty and staff decide that it wasn't a job, but it was a community. It is a community that they're part of, that is family, and they also want to recognize the importance of Northwestern with their gifts. And I know a number of faculty, former faculty, staff, and former staff are here today. Would you stand and be recognized for your gifts? Thank you. That includes deans and vice presidents as well. I know Bernie and Sally have set an example of that, so thank you. So what happens when you make these gifts? Pretty much all of them, unless you designate it for another purpose, go into the university's endowment and allow me to make recurring commitments to expand the opportunities that we provide students and faculty and staff and alumni at the university to enrich their experience here at Northwestern and to expand their opportunities for success here at Northwestern and beyond Northwestern. So when a bequest comes in, Camille sends me a note and says, what do you want to do with this money? And the first thing I do is I look at the history of the donor and what you cared about. And it often helps if the donor has said, this is what I care about. But if you haven't specified that, and instead you say, well, I trust the university to make the best decision on how to use the funds at that time, then what I do is I look at your interests and your record of giving, and I compare that to the priorities and the needs of the university. And I try and match that up. And so I'll designate it for different purposes, trying in some cases to be a bit of a mind reader of what it is that I think you would be most pleased about achieving. As we look across the university, and as you think about Northwestern, there are so many parts that we're proud of that there are lots and lots of opportunities to think about what we might want to support, be it athletics or academics or financial aid for undergraduates or graduate student fellowships or biomedical research or outreach to alumni or all sorts of events, all sorts of activities, all sorts of areas of study. When a gift is made to endowment, though, they are all, even though they are separate accounts, they're treated together as an endowment. And I can tell you that your investment in the university pays dividends in perpetuity because I must say we do a pretty good job of investing the money. Our returns on investment have been in the top quartile of all universities over the last, I don't know how long we've been tracking it, decades. Last year's return was roughly 12% on investment. I don't know about you, but that was a little bit better than I did. And, but they don't take checks from me to invest unless I'm making a gift. So the funds grow, and what you give today down the road supports even more. And because we can count on those gifts to have a payout that is sustainable year after year, in that way I can make a recurring commitment. We can add a faculty member, or we can create a program that we expect to fund year after year. And that really grows the overall enterprise tremendously. So thank you for that. Henry Wade Rogers, the Henry of the Henry and Emma Rogers, was president of Northwestern at the end of the 19th century. And one of the things that he's credited with was bringing together a group of rather separate colleges into a university that really functioned as a university. I often question that we still have a lot of schools that we constantly rethink. How do we get them to all work together as a university? And that was the basis of our strategic planning process, that we spent a couple years thinking collectively, what does it mean to add up to be Northwestern rather than separate schools that each have their own important mission but benefit from the interactions that they have across schools. So what are the themes that cut across the university that make us special, make us different than other institutions, allow us to do things that are important, that have an impact, different than what other institutions can do? You know, we're one of the few institutions that combines areas of excellence in the schools that we have with excellence on the playing fields, with excellence on the stage, with excellence in music and performance, with excellence in outreach into the school systems, and all these things. So how do they add up to be Northwestern? And as we think about those kinds of ways in which Northwestern can succeed in our educational and research and outreach and community building missions, pillars of our strategic plan, we think then about specific ideas that we might implement to achieve that plan. And those are the kinds of ideas we often talk with alumni and other supporters about, and hope that it also captures their interest and that they get excited about supporting it. So one of those conversations began a number of years ago when I was still Dean of Weinberg with Maury Kaplan and Dolores Cole Kaplan. Maury had graduated from Northwestern a few years ago, and he studied business at Northwestern, but he cared deeply about the humanities. And he wanted to see a way to engage undergraduates, no matter what their major or no matter what their aspiration, in meaningful dialogue in the humanities. He wanted students to love literature and love the arts and love reading and thinking about big ideas. And so he kept challenging me to think about ways to make the humanities more accessible to students. And I'd sit down and talk with Maury and Dolores and give them some thoughts, and they'd say, nice try. And so I'd go back and talk to people, and we'd think about it some more, and we'd have conversations. And we got closer and closer to things that they got excited about. And finally, we hit on something that they got excited about indeed. And I brought one of our wonderful faculty, Ken Alder, in history into the conversation to help put real meat on the bones of creating a freshman humanities scholars program that was open to undergraduates in any area, but to work in a new way in engagement with the humanities quite deeply, not a survey course, but a real deep engagement with the questions in the humanities. What Maury decided to do, he loved this idea and he wanted to support it right away. In order to put it in place, we had to add additional faculty and move teaching to create this program. So he created a planned gift. He created a bequest intention that was going to fund this at some point in the future, but he wanted to get it started right away because he wanted to see this in action. He wanted to meet the students. Maury at the time was in his mid-90s, and he was anxious to see the fruits of this. So he made an annual gift that was the equivalent of the payout from endowment of the bequest to enable us to get started right away. So we created the Kaplan Freshman Humanities Scholars Program, which is now in its almost its 10th year. And one of the students in that program is here with us today. She went through it a couple years ago as a freshman. She's now a junior in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. And I invite Kara McCarthy to come up and tell you a bit about her experience.
Thank you so much, Professor Linzer, for that very nice introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Kira McCarthy, and I am a junior here at Northwestern. And I'm really excited to be here to share a little bit about my experience, and my experience especially within the Kaplan Humanities Scholars Program. So I'd like to talk today about the many gifts that have been provided to me by Northwestern, many of which wouldn't have been possible without your generosity. So my academic career at Northwestern began with the Kaplan Humanities Scholars Program. Kaplan is an interdisciplinary seminar designed specifically for freshmen as an intensive introduction to college-level humanities. And although Kaplan was the first academic class I ever took and the start of my official academic experience, it was also the beginning of some of the most meaningful personal relationships that I've had here at Northwestern. One of the most important relationships that I started at Kaplan was with Professor Julia Stern, who served as my mentor and friend since freshman year. Julia welcomed all of her students with open arms and took us on a gleeful ride through the origins of melodrama in our Kaplan course. Learning with Julia was one of the best experiences I've had in college because it was the first time I've been in a classroom where a teacher really encouraged her students to analyze literature in new and fresh ways, to think innovatively about what a text was saying. In addition to her brilliance, Julia cared for us deeply, something most of us needed during our first forays into the real world. She made me and my fellow Kaplan scholars feel at home at Northwestern by hosting us for group dinners at her house. Julia went beyond the role required by a professor by not only engaging us academically, but by helping to make Northwestern our home and creating a community of new students who would stay lifelong friends. I'm lucky enough to count many of my peers from Kaplan as some of my closest friends on campus. She also encouraged us to forge our own path by pursuing academic and professional interests that we were passionate about. Julia is a large part of the reason why I'm now an American Studies major and has always supported my various endeavors. The opportunities that Northwestern has provided me are diverse and unique. The summer after my freshman year, I traveled to Udaipur, India with the Global Engagement Studies Institute to work at a non-governmental organization and to learn about the complex world of international development. In a weird way, I think my decision to travel to India stemmed from a larger confidence that Kaplan provided me throughout my freshman year. Although the study of the humanities and international development may not seem closely connected, the confidence that the community that Kaplan provided me and the academic stimulation it incited in me encouraged me to continue pursuing the many diverse opportunities Northwestern has to offer. Since returning from India, I've been able to learn about development issues more locally as a Brady Scholar in Ethics and Civic Life. Through Brady, I've worked with and learned from a variety of Evanston organizations working to combat youth homelessness, and asked important questions about my role as a community member of Northwestern and Evanston and the most ethical way to fill that role. Finally, Northwestern has allowed me to dive headfirst into the world of journalism without requiring that I major in it. I've taken a journalism class in which students partnered with the Chicago Sun-Times to report on homicide cases in order to understand the complex relationship that journalism has with social change. I've covered everything from a presidential speech in Hyde Park to Evanston City Council for the Daily Northwestern. All of these experiences have prepared me for my career and for life. Although I'm headed for the constantly evolving field of journalism with a degree most people have never heard of, I'm not worried at all, mostly because the diverse and amazing opportunities that I've had in my 3 years at Northwestern have made me an adaptable person who's supported by a strong community here at Northwestern. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my experience at Northwestern, and thank you so much for your continued commitment to making Northwestern a wonderful and welcoming place. Thank you.
Thank you so very much to Provost Linzer and to Kira for both of you for your wonderful remarks. Very glad that you could be with us and share them with us today. And thanks to all of you for being with us. I know that some of you might be wondering about the tour that you all read about. So for those of you who are signed up for that tour, the shuttle buses for Harris Hall will be near the valet in front of the hotel. I'm sure they're there right now, right? Yeah, okay. And so they will provide transportation for all the guests to and from Harris Hall. And just as a reminder, the parking and valet service will be available here until 5 p.m. Guests will need a voucher, which you can just pick up at the name tag table if you didn't get one when you arrived. And last but certainly not least, we asked a number of you to let us take your beautiful photos when you arrived, and that's because we'd love to have the opportunity to send you a photo as a keepsake from the event. So for those of you who didn't have that opportunity prior to the sitting down for the meal, please do. I encourage you to join us at the mini photo lab back there. Of course, staff like me and other members of our development office will be here to answer any questions anyone has. I think a number of us are excited about the tour as well, so we'll see many of you there. But just thank you again so very much for being with us today. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and we're just so grateful.